Susan Miller was an investigative journalist. Her job was to uncover the truth. But her true obsession was understanding stories people had forgotten, or wanted to forget. One evening, an anonymous email appeared in her inbox. Attached to the email was an old newspaper clipping, dated 1986. What it described was disturbing. According to the article, in 1986, on a remote island off the Pacific Northwest coast of the United States, people were secretly imprisoned inside a massive government-backed complex and forced to participate in real-life torture games. Even more shocking, the email claimed that high-ranking U.S. officials were involved, powerful authorities who sent political dissenters and whistleblowers there to silence them. The email also included exact GPS coordinates. Susan knew she couldn't ignore it. She decided to investigate the island herself. Susan traveled alone, taking a small rented boat to reach the remote island. The complex was hidden deep inside a thick, untouched forest. The moment she stepped onto the island, something strange happened. Her phone, fully charged, instantly shut down. No signal. No power. Luckily, Susan had brought flashlights and printed satellite maps. She followed the coordinates deeper into the forest, fully aware that this investigation could cost her life. Suddenly, a violent storm broke out. The wind howled so loudly she could barely hear her own breathing. Then she heard it. Screaming. Human screams echoing through the trees. Someone was being tortured, or killed. Susan ran toward the sound. But just as suddenly as it began, the screams stopped. The forest fell silent. That's when she noticed her. Behind a tree stood a thin teenage girl, staring straight at her. Susan called out. No response. When Susan stepped closer, the girl vanished. Her head began to spin. Susan collapsed. She woke up inside a dark room within the complex. Cold concrete beneath her body. Strange mechanical sounds echoed through the building. She opened the door and entered a massive hall. Inside were dozens of people, their hands and feet bound. Armed guards wearing black masks surrounded them. Guns raised. The guards shouted orders. Susan realized the truth. It was a game. A race. Each prisoner held a spoon in their mouth, balancing a lemon. They were forced to run. Suddenly, a young man dropped his lemon. Without warning. A gunshot. He was dead. A distorted voice boomed over the speakers. Welcome to the original games. Only the strongest survive. Susan's blood ran cold. One by one, people were executed for failing. The rumors were real. The torture games never ended. And Susan was now part of them. Then she saw her again. The same thin girl from the forest. Running. Her lemon fell. It rolled to Susan's feet. Before Susan could move, the guards shot the girl. Her body collapsed at Susan's feet. Tears streamed down Susan's face. But then, the girl's eyes opened. Her face twisted unnaturally. Suddenly, the guards vanished. The players vanished. The bodies rose. Their skin turned black. Their eyes turned white. They were no longer human. The girl stood up and walked toward Susan. The others followed. Terrified, Susan ran back to the dark room and slammed the door shut. Something pounded violently against it. Then silence. When Susan opened the door again, the hall was empty. Dust filled the air. Old, dried blood stained the floor. Decades old. Susan finally understood. They weren't players. They were souls of prisoners tortured and killed in the complex. Susan photographed everything and escaped the island before sunrise. As she looked back one last time, the thin girl appeared again. Then disappeared into the fog. Back home, Susan prepared a report exposing the island. But 3 questions haunted her. Who sent the email? How did she reach the complex after fainting? And who was the girl? Weeks later, Susan found an old letter from a reader. A man wrote that his fiancée, Emily Carter, had gone missing. The last place she was seen. A remote island trip off the US coast. Attached was a photo. Susan froze. It was the same girl. But the games supposedly began in 1986. That meant the games were still happening. Susan contacted federal authorities. A large-scale investigation began. The complex was found. Empty. But beneath it, over 1,000 skeletons were discovered. DNA testing confirmed one belonged to Emily Carter. The truth was undeniable. Yet no one was arrested. The government sealed the case. Susan protested. She spoke out. A few months later, Susan died in a mysterious car accident. Officially, it was an accident. Unofficially, maybe the games are still being played. What do you think? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe.